Everybody, this is Don from Wizard Tower Games. Thanks for tuning into my latest video. We're going to talk publishing, and I have on audio, because he's hiding from me tonight, my best friend, Steve Lake. Now, Steve and me have known each other for 15 years, and we have ran the gambit together. I mean, he has been there for me. I have been there for him. He helped me with my publishing company. We developed to our bane, a tracking program. Remember that, Steve? Yes, he sounds so thrilled with it. You know, it's called ATP. 3 letters that will live in infamy with us. But Steve, thanks for coming on, and we're going to talk about publishing, right?
Yes.
All right. Now, Steve lives about 30, 40 miles from me. You live up in Lansing. I live in Battle Creek. We don't see each other as much as we used to, but, you know, hopefully that'll get changing now that COVID's over and people are getting up from being sick and all that good stuff. So, Steve has, to give a little background on my friend here, Steve has published a multitude of books. Sci-fi is his jam. He has published the Earth Fleet series. I'm going to put links to all of his personal page, his Amazon pages down in the description of this video. But like I said, he's not on video. Even though he works for an IT company, he's not on video. He doesn't have video. And I'm going to give him shit throughout this entire video because I'm authorized because we're such good friends. So, Steve, thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, Steve, you want to do a video about publishing? Let's go. What do you got?
Well, I think one of the big things, because one of the series I'm doing right now is an intro to writing. And, you know, I've got my listeners through the whole, let's build the story. Let's look at the different parts and things that you need for when you're writing stuff you need to be aware of. Now comes the part where, hey, I've written the story. What's the next steps? Which I would automatically tell them, you know, you need professional editing. And, you know, until you get to the point where you're good enough, you feel like you don't need it anymore. But definitely professional editing at the beginning. And then after that, publishing.
Well, the thing is with editing, and that's a good point that you make. And we both heard it a million times when I had my publishing company. You know, people say, you know, I had my sister edit my book, or, you know, my mom, you know, she was an English teacher or something. And that's really not the right way to go. You really need a real editor, you know. And I think that the editing is probably one of the most critical parts of a book, because the last thing you want to do is, and it's the same thing with game design. And that's kind of the reason why we're doing this, is because, you know, whether you're publishing a book or whether you're publishing a game, it's kind of the same thing. You know, the last thing you want is a reader to see a bunch of glaring errors or even minor errors. Same thing with the game. You don't want people going through rules and running into errors.
Yeah, and there's things that an editor will pick out, especially when they don't have the same familiarity to your story as you do. They will come in there and they will find stuff. I mean, it's like when you and I were working on stuff, like when I would develop a piece of software for you, and I'd be like, okay, I got this absolutely perfect. Here, have a look at it. Within 10 minutes, you're like, I broke all this stuff. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, and that's what I think what a lot of people don't understand is that game design, writing a novel, coding a website, making a computer program, it's kind of all the same thing, because if you know, when you're done with the computer program, you hand it to somebody and then they start using it in the real world and they find things that are errors. Same thing, you publish your book, you set it out there, it's not edited properly, and people start seeing grammatical errors. Because I used to tell authors all the time when I had my publishing company, is the reason why you want an outside editor, someone that doesn't even know you, is because you are too close to the story. You know, you will miss things that are so glaring, it makes you, it's almost insulting to yourself. But because you're so close to the story, that's why you miss it, because in your mind is skipping over the errors because you're the one who wrote it.
Or I've had situations where somebody's read the book and they've started asking me questions about stuff, and I'm like, why don't you know this? And then all of a sudden dawns on me, oh, right, you're not familiar with the world like I am.
Yeah. plot holes, tropes that we're familiar with. But the problem is other people are not, because also in our mind, we think we wrote it down, but we didn't. We assume, it's the assumption that it's there because we know it so well.
Right. It's part of the super world, but it never made it into the book. And to you, it's second nature, but to the reader, they have no idea.
Yeah. So, publishing is critical. And the next step is actually publishing it, getting the work physically into a production level, at a production level to where it can be made, bound, printed, produced, and presented to the public. And that just like like I said, I've done all your covers. We've worked together in publishing extensively. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of people when they get into either game publishing or book publishing. They make assumptions, and the assumptions that they make is that their product, they don't want to hear bad news. I used to, like I said, with the publishing company, we used to joke all the time. You'd come in and we would talk about, an author just went out and just left because, I am of the opposite belief. I think the best thing that you can do to me as an author or as a game designer is like under game design. And we're going to talk kind of like mutually inclusive of each one, publishing books, publishing games, because they're the kind of the same thing. Is I like it when someone says, Don, I found a problem, or I found, your game doesn't make sense, or there's a way that I can beat your game that you didn't mention. Or like with writing, you talk about this character, but you never introduce the character. And that helps us as writers and creators because we can say, oh, not only do we correct the problem, but we kind of have a back end learning curve with that by saying, you know what? I need to next time be a little bit more careful. I need to be more mindful. I need to step away from my book. And we've talked about this before also is, how many times have you written a book and you said, Don, I'm done with my book. Hooray. But you say, I don't think I'm ready to go ahead and present this for another 6 months, 3 months.
Exactly. Yeah. Cause you have to go through, and one thing I like to do is I will work on a book for like 2 to 6 weeks. And then when I start feeling myself feeling a little, or a little bored and stuff, okay, now we'll set that aside and walk over and work on this other one. And what that does is you're not so, you don't, because you build tunnel vision the more you edit it. And I find this even, to the point where I've had to start using a text-to-speech reader to help me suss out problems in the story. And that helps a lot. But yeah, writing the story for, write the rough draft, walk away from it for a while, go do something else, come back, edit for a while, walk away from it for a while. Cause then you come back in with a fresh perspective.
Yes. And you said something very interesting and you mentioned text to speech, and that's a tool that I think a lot of people don't realize, that is a tool like you think it is. Real quickly explain, how do you use text to speech? Like how is that, what tool is that in your toolbox and how do you use it?
It's actually a Firefox browser plugin. It's I gotta go look up the name.
Do me a favor, drop me the link when we're done, and I'll put it down in the description in this video for people can go link to the. Is it a link that they can click on for the browser extension?
Yeah, it's called Read Aloud, a text-to-speech voice reader.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get the website for you, and I'll send that over to you. But
well, you can do that after we're done with the
right.
video.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll find it and send it over to you.
And by the way, I'm going to warn everybody about this video right now. You may see that me and Steve seem like we're being insultingly crass with each other. No, we're not. We've just known each other forever, and that's just how we are to each other. So,
oh yeah, we used to be at Two Moon, and we'd go in the back office, and everybody hear us yelling and screaming at each other, and then we'd come out afterwards and say, hey, you want to go for a burger? Sure, no problem. Like, what the heck? You were just yelling at each other.
Because me and you have known each other so well, and we're such good friends that we can go ahead and we can have those hard discussions and hard arguments. And I just got the link, by the way. I'll go ahead and drop that just in the description when we're down here. So, but how does text? Okay, you load it in Firefox, and I'm sure Google Chrome has an identical one. So does Safari, and so on and so forth. But so you have a text-to-speech tool. Steve, okay, you have your book open. Tell me, how does it help you, or how can it help somebody else either doing game rules or a book as an example?
Okay, well, what I'll do is I will typically take the manuscript I have in that whatever version it is,
Mm-hmm.
and I will save it as an HTML document. Then I'll load it in the browser and fire up that tool, and I will also then have a regular copy of my story open at that point, and I will either read along or I will just kind of sit there and quietly listen. And every so often something will jump out. I'll pause it. I'll go back in. I'll reread that section. Oh, yep. Okay, that is an error. And I'll go back in and fix it. And it's really good at spotting stuff, although it does have pronunciation problems with certain words and names.
So what you're saying is this: by listening to the book being read aloud back to you, it's helping you go, oh, I just caught that. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's either the sentence doesn't sound right, or I've had it where you've got words missing. Instead of like they went down to the river, it's like they went river. Like, okay, there's some words missing here.
Yeah. Now, quick question for those that are not technically savvy, and I'm going to get on my friend's ass here, okay? Because I tell Steve all the time that he assumes everybody is as technical savvy as he is. And let me tell you something about Stephen Lake. Stephen Lake works for a company in Michigan. We're not going to say the company, that basically does internet service providers. They will host your website. They host all my sites, all of that. Steve is a high-level tech supervisor now. He's worked his way up through the company. And so Steve tends to, I'm going to warn people right now about my friend, Steve tends to assume that you understand things at the same level he does. Am I right, Mr. Lake?
Yes, or I will try to simplify it for people, but there gets to be a point where I simplify it so far, I can't really simplify it any further.
Yeah. So my question for you is this. I have a Word document up, and I want to save it as an HTML doc. I can just simply go into Save Document, then you go Document Type in HTML, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to do it for the people who are watching this video, because you said you save as an HTML doc. And real quick on the side, the internet and making websites is not as intimidating as it sounds. It's literally, you have your Word doc open, save as, and instead of saving it as a Word doc, you drop the Dropbox down and it'll say HTML, and that's what you save. And then when you click on that, it opens it up in a web browser for the text to speech, correct?
Yes, yeah. What you'd have to do is actually you save it as HTML in the Word or in the word processor you're using. And then just go over, like if you have a file manager or something, go over to wherever you saved it, double click on it, and the browser will automatically open it.
Bingo. Okay. All right. There. So text to speech is a good tool. So what else do you suggest or
Okay, one tool I use, or well, I should say I don't use, but I know people who do, and I recommend this for authors who are just getting into this because this will help you a lot, is to use Grammarly. Grammarly is good for grammar and spelling and making sure you got the right word in the right spot.
Oh boy, you just opened up a can of worms.
Mm-hmm. But you also have to realize Grammarly is not going to get it perfect. I said this in one of my in my narration and dialogue video that Grammarly gets you like 90% of the way there, but then you've got the author voice, you've got the character voice, and Grammarly's not going to get that perfect. Okay.
There is an infamous individual in the gaming world. We like to refer to him lovingly as Voldemort. Now, Voldemort, and I will not use his correct name, although my other friends, Eric Tenkar and Tom Verrolt, will know who I'm talking about, as will other people, Kim Winson, David Floor, and such. This guy basically is a game publisher, and he goes and he uses Grammarly, but he takes it verbatim. And he doesn't know how to adjust Grammarly. So just to clarify, it's important when you go ahead and fire up Grammarly that you have to actually set Grammarly up for the type of writing that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So, but also you made a really key point here, and I find it real interesting that you added this, and I agree with you. I think Grammarly is like a lot of online tools. I think it is a good tool to use, but you cannot depend on it 100%. It takes you or having a secondary editor also, of course. But initially, you do need to re-go over and re-walk through what Grammarly has told you to do, because Grammarly can get it wrong. Because Grammarly doesn't understand pace. It doesn't understand, slang, as an example.
Or author voice.
Yes, exactly. Author voice is another one. Now, explain, what is author voice for those who don't know here?
Author voice is basically, this is primarily in the narration parts of the story, is you talking to somebody else through the words on the page and the way, the way you say it, you dictate it, or if you're pretending to be somebody else, like let's say the narrator in your story happens to be a butler in a mansion, you have to have, that narrator has to have that butler-like personality.
Yeah.
So yeah, Grammarly I think is really good. Kind of like the text-to-speech thing. It's good for spotting problems, but don't lean on it too hard.
Yeah. Now, Grammarly is an AI-based tool. And Steve, for everybody's knowledge, Steve does not do game design. Steve is strictly an author. He writes really good sci-fi. And again, we're going to link all of his links down below in the description of this video. But to let you know, Steve, AI right now, and you might already know this, is a real firebrand subject in game design, because people, nobody really understands how AI gets its imagery. There's famous people who do artwork in games. And the reason I'm kind of leaning on gaming is because, Wizard Tower Games do game publishing, but, even for normal book covers and such, I see so many people go online and they do it in gaming too, is they'll say something like, draw me a red dragon in the style of Larry Elmore. Now, Larry Elmore is a famous artist in Dungeons and Dragons. And the problem is nobody understands how AI really goes out and grabs and gets its inspiration from. Now, you work in the tech field. You are really up because of the level of security that you have with your company and your knowledge of the internet in general. Can you speak to things like AI art programs? Do you know, because there's so many people that argue about this online. I've done videos about this, and I get people arguing in my chat. Do you understand the mechanics behind AI and where it gets its art from, or not?
Not really. I mean, even some of the guys at work who are really deep into this stuff and really understand it well, they describe AI as like this great big black box that only the programmers understand, and they're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
So, you can, and the prompts for AI are kind of like a programming language. If you can figure out the logic of that, you can get some consistency and some of what you're after. But, that's why I, in one of my, at least a couple of my videos, I think I've mentioned that AI is great for example art for your writing, like what I use, but don't use it for your professional stuff. Get a regular artist for that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because that's in game design, that right now is one of the biggest arguments in game design. Is a lot of people are saying, look, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, as a publisher, we've opted not to use, Wizard Tower Games has opted not to use AI art because, like you just said, and I'll take it like this, I've known you long enough where if you say that you don't know how it's done, there's a problem with it, because you are so boned up on how the internet works because of your job and just your general technical knowledge of programming and such. And, people online, they'll begin massive arguments about it because people go, what's wrong with it? It doesn't hurt nobody. There's
legalities is the biggest one, because there's some court cases brewing right now about the legality of AI art. How, are you, through the AI stealing somebody else's work? Are you mimicking it in a way that's illegal? Or,
there's right now a large lawsuit happening on AI music with the AI behind music, and there's several artists going, wait a minute here, that's clearly my tempo. That's clearly, and I'm not a music guy, so maybe I'm calling it the wrong thing, but those are my notes. It's obviously my stuff, and I think you get that a lot in AI. But like, I have a friend on my Facebook page, and he's coming to the game convention next year, named Jeff D. And Jeff D is a strong opponent of AI art. He's very vocal about it. And, I think he makes a bunch of salient points in that, the problem with AI art, and it's a huge firebrand subject right now. I mean, if you go into the gaming groups and such on social media, you'll see people really contesting it, is because we don't know specifically how those black box, to use your term, you're right, it's like a black box. You don't know what's in it. How are they pulling that artwork? And if, like as an example, and I've tried this on AI, I've done things like one example was just the other night I was kind of playing with it, and I said, draw me Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and it did this really weird thing. But then I went in and I said, draw me Charlie Brown and Snoopy as the artist drew them. And what was scary to me was it was really close. Now, if AI is just some random thing that's not legitimately pulling things off the internet or pulling things out of, trademark or copyright databases, how would it know what legitimately Snoopy looked like?
Right, because it has to have. You have to train AI with existing examples. It has zero creativity. No matter what they say, it cannot create unless it has previous information.
Yeah. So how does it know? I mean, and the counter argument to that, and I'll play devil's advocate here with you, is, and I've had people use this on me, and they've said, "Well, Don, well, maybe the reason why AI is doing that because they're using open, you have trademarked, and then you have what they call open source stuff. You have stuff that's no longer protected under copyright and trademark, and they say, well, that's what they put in their databases. Well, then the problem is if I go in and I say something like, and I'll use Larry Elmore as an example, draw me a red dragon in the style of Larry Elmore or Jeff Easley. And those are two very well-known fantasy artists for Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy gaming in general. It won't do it like exactly, but you get the vibe. And if you keep pushing, like you said, it's almost like a computer program. If you refine your code, how you say it, you can train your wording to almost to train it, to train AI to get better, to make it more like what you want. It's got to be pulling from somewhere that's not.
Yeah, it pulled, and they've even admitted this. I don't know which of the AI art companies, because there's like 20 different ones, but I know a bunch of them have admitted that they scrape the internet and they can copyrighted stuff, open source stuff. They'll go through DeviantArt, they'll go through different websites and stuff. So they're taking copyrighted content and bringing it into the engine. Yeah,
DeviantArt is the one that's right now in a lawsuit. Also, I think they filed a lawsuit, I believe, against Midjourney.
Oh yeah, okay, that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, that have said, wait a minute here, you're going into our stuff, and we have some well-known artists in DeviantArt, but we also have a lot of unknown, and their stuff is just equally as protected as anybody else's. And so we have AI art. Now we have the big one, Chat GPT. Now I'm going to offer my opinion because this is something I just recently did. I recently did a video call out, and my video call out was for, we have a game project working on, and what the basics of the game project is we have a map on one side of the page, and on the other, we want a short 150 word or less introduction to that map. Like the one I did online was lair of the abandoned lair of the Kobold King, and I had over 100 submissions, Steve, to my call out, and I caught a few that sounded so much like AI. It just had that pace, that weird inflection. I asked them, and I had at least 4 or 5 people admit, yeah, I used AI. I used ChatGPT. Now, what is your opinion of ChatGPT?
I've played with it, and when you have like predetermined subjects, like in my business, our customers use WordPress a lot.
Yeah.
And when you ask it like, well, how do I do this in WordPress? It's got all the documentation. It goes through there, grabs what it needs, and spits out the information to you. For that, it's great.
But WordPress is open source.
Right. So yes, and there's a lot of documentation.
And there's no so ChatGPT would not be stepping on any proprietary type of stuff if it goes WordPress, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, same thing
But
with
then,
Linux.
right. And then you get into like, the creative side of things. It has a limited knowledge base on that, and a lot of it comes from existing copyrighted works. So, and at that point in time, you're now opening up a whole can of landmines with, is this legal? Is this legitimate? Is this, just in bad taste because you're borrowing from somebody else, even if it's through an AI?
Well, and that's the whole thing here. And let's play for a moment that it does not. Let's say Chat GTP, and this is a big one with me because I write also. You know my work I've written, and the thing with me is even if you say Chat GTP is sanitized, everything it does is original. Okay, great. Are you really an author if you go in there and say, write me a 5,000 word short story about a little girl who meets some fairies in the woods and they have to get the key to the fairy's happiness back, i.e., my book, Magical Land of Yet, my children's book I published many years ago. Now, what is your opinion of someone who sits down and does that and then they get it? And either they use it outright and they say, I wrote that, or they go, wait a minute, I did indeed write it because I tweaked it.
I wrote the prompt.
Are they really an author?
No, because you're just, you're basically,
I agree.
if you read them, you're basically reading a book report. There's no spirit. There's no feel to it. It's like, a machine barfed out a bunch of, ones and zeros, and that's what you got.
Yeah, because I mean, me and you have talked about this probably thousands of times in the last 15 years knowing each other. I mean, my book, Soccer Mom. God, I worked on that, 10 years? And it's only a 150-page story, and I worked on it a decade. And I know, like with you, with the Earth Fleet series and just all your other work, I know how much effort you put into it and such. That's writing. What you do is true writing. And I just have a real problem with it because people go, well, I'm not harming nothing if I use Chat DP or Chat GTP. And I have no problem with like someone at home and go, you know what? I got a game this weekend. I need to work up a quick adventure. Go to Chat GTP and have Chat GTP puke you out a real quick adventure for this weekend because I'm with my buddies having fun. But if you're going to present to the public and say that you wrote it, that's where I have a problem with it because you're not really creating nothing.
Right. And yet, it's kind of the idea of the people that like plagiarize reports and stuff when they were in school. It's like, look what I did. No, you stole it from somebody else. And then you've got this other poor slob over here slaving over their report. And, you cheated about it. And, to me, it's completely dishonest to use the AIs because what are you doing? You're writing a few sentences to get a story. Someone else is doing all your work. It's like ghostwriting, essentially.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was to say it's like ghostwriting, but it's kind of the bad form of it.
So what is is there let me ask you this question. Then is there a legitimate way to use Chat GPT as an example?
If you're doing research on stuff, yes. But actually, one of the things we found at work is if you need information on things, BingBot's actually the better AI for that because it gives you links. Well, it gives you information and it gives you links that you can work with to research for your parts of the book.
Wait a minute. So not only does it throw the info at you, it gives you citations?
Yeah, it gives you citations, gives you links. It says, go here and read this. And it'll give you kind of that little teaser of what's going to be at that link. And you go to that link and you get all of the details and then you distill that down to what you need.
Okay, so basically it's
an AI bot merged with a search engine.
Gotcha. Okay. So just to kind of quantify what you just said, because we've covered a lot in the last probably about 8 or 10 minutes about AI. Do you think AI is a good tool to use, but it's not a tool for production level?
Right. It's the hammer in your toolbox, but it's not the full tool set you need to build the house.
Okay. Because I know that me and you, like as an example, you said, because I do your cover design work for you.
Right.
And like you'll say, hey, Don, because one of the things me and you've struggled with before AI came apart is you would have in your head what you want. And as a cover designer, I would have to take what you taught, because we talk every day, is I'd have to take what you tell me and I'd have to kind of delineate what you're saying and distill it and put it down. And I don't know how many times I'd say, here you go. And you'd go, well, that looks great. But
right.
Now with AI, you've many times have said, here's kind of what I'm getting at, Don, and I can kind of better see. So I think you're right. I think AI, and you said it great, AI is a great hammer in your toolbox, but don't use it to build. It's not going to be able to build your entire house.
Right. It's going to be able to drive nails, but not do all the wood cutting and all of that kind of stuff. Okay.
So ask somebody, how many books have you authored? 20, 24?
I think it's 25. I don't.
You're up there now. You've up there. I think I'm at 14, but I know that you got me almost beat by double.
Yeah, it's at least 25 that I'm aware of. Plus, I got at least another 16 or more sitting in my to-do pile.
Don't we both have that?
Yep. And not all of those aren't all of the ones that all the ideas I've come up with. There's a lot of them I just ended up throwing out because I could never get the idea to work.
Now I'm really screwed because I have not only what I want to write author-wise, now I have a bloody game design folder too that says what I want to write game-wise.
Yep.
So, all right. So we've covered AI, we've covered editing, publishing.
Yeah, that's the point when you actually put it out the door to the customer.
Yes. So you take your book, you have had it professionally edited, you've had it. Something we haven't talked about is layout.
Yeah, layout. But that's part of the publishing process too.
Yes. So like at Two Moon, when I had my company Two Moon Press, as you really well know, we had I had like 9 women working for me at one time, and Kate was my layout specialist.
Right.
And the thing is layout is just like in gaming, book publishing and game publishing are really hand in hand in this, because depending on what the end product is, layout is really unique. Like you have the type of books you do, you and me do as an example. Well, I do more illustrated than you do, but like you have standard novels, Earthfleet series, me, the Alterverse Chronicles.
Right.
It's text, it tells a story. You got children's book, which are heavily dependent upon illustrations because that's how children learn. They learn visually. And then you have books that teach, et cetera, et cetera. But like with game design, with game modules, you're telling a story, but you're also teaching somebody more in depth about the story and what's behind it. It's illustrated with imagery to help spark the imagination. In your opinion, as somebody who's done so many books, what do you think is the hardest job of an illustrator? Or not illustrator, excuse me, a layout specialist? You've dealt with a lot of them.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of them. I think it's just picking a layout that actually works. I mean, I can't say a lot on that because I know you do such a really good job with it, but it's like, the bigger problem is it just laying out text and doing the paragraphs and the alignment and stuff, or do you have extra? Do you have images inserted periodically in the book? When you were talking about children's books, okay, you've got the image, you've got the text. Where do you put the text on the page for the most impact? Yeah, and stuff like that. So that that's the author can come up with some of that, but usually that ends up falling on the layout expert.
And as an author, you have, and you've seen this again at Two Moon quite a bit, and I see this a lot in the game development industry. Is you as the creator may have your ideas and the way you want it. Do you believe that it's best to let the layout person just do their job? Do you think that the layout specialist needs to sit down with you and work closely with you? How do you think that whole process should pan out as the other end of it, the creator?
I guess it would depend on how much extra content is in there. If it's just text, like I generally do, Yeah, let the layout or let the layout expert handle it, and then you just like, well, I found this little problem here, this little problem here, and it's usually not that much they have to fix. Now you start inserting images in there. Okay, what scene or what part of the story does that image go with, and where does it best fit, and stuff like that. So that, that's the point. The more images you have, the more I think you want to be hands-on with that.
Yeah, because the imagery can sometimes help the story along. So as the author, you should have definitive feedback in that.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, it's like, say you have a drawing of a pumpkin, but you have two trolls fighting each other. It's like, I don't think having that pumpkin in there is appropriate for that part. Maybe if you scroll up a little bit, where the reason they're fighting is because of a pumpkin. Yeah, exactly.
Because your layout specialist can get it wrong.
Right.
And that's why I also believe that one of the most important things is when you get that email or that call saying, okay, Steve, your book is laid out, it's ready to go. It's important for the author to take a comprehensive look at it, because, and we ran into this a lot at Two Moon, as you know, you send the email, within 5 minutes they say looks great, and you're going, I just sent you a 450-page document and you've had it for 9 minutes and you just said looks great. It's going to happen down the line after it's in print. So well, I think we got a good handle on overall design and such. Now let's talk about some of the traps out there for authors. Some of the bad things that can go on with authors, and I think number one is expectation.
Right.
Whether you're publishing a book or a game is, and I'll just say it like this, and I'll then let you have the ball, is as a publisher, there's only so much that the publisher can do. It's a team. The author and the publisher, or the game publisher and the game designer, as an example, we're a team, and the best way we can get the product sold is to get that product out there, but both of us have a job to do. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
And what do you think are some very important things that the author or the game creator, designer, not maker, but the person who invented the game, we'll call it that, the game inventor, or the author, what are some important things that you can do that can not only help your publisher, but help yourself?
Well, once the book is in print or ebook or audiobook, excuse me a second. One of the things you can do, as the creator or the author stuff, is market. Marketing is a big thing, because you can throw a book out there on Amazon, but if nobody knows about it, that thing ain't going to go anywhere.
So what are some cheap ways or free ways that an author can market their book?
Start, either advertise in Facebook groups. If you're on other social engines like MeWe, or you're on Instagram or something like that, put covers out there, talk about your books, maybe start a YouTube channel, get yourself out there and get yourself known. And I know that's not easy. I mean, I may sound like I'm very outgoing right now, but I'm actually very much an introvert. So,
you are very introverted.
Yes. And that's one thing about my YouTube channel, is it's helped me become more extroverted, but it's still hard for me to get out there and do that. So, shows are really great for gamers. It would be gaming shows, Gen Con. What's a couple of the ones you used to go to?
We've got Gen Con. Well, locally around here, in the United States that are smaller, you have the big one is Gary Con. That's the one that's named after Gary Gygax. But you have things like Shire Con, but also along with game conventions, a good way to get your product out there. And this is some of the weird stuff that people don't think about. It doesn't have to be a game convention. Me and you used to go to the Wings Stadium Christmas at Wings event every year. Remember?
Yeah, craft shows. You can go out to like Dragon Con's one. I used to go to Penguin Con. There's Starbase Indy, which is a Star Trek convention. So you're thinking, okay, maybe your stuff isn't Star Trek, but these are people that like sci-fi.
That's right.
So if you're taking your sci-fi stuff out there, they're going to suck that up,
Yeah. So basically, you don't have to really go to the big ones. You can go to the smaller ones, like even things like as an example, my wife's school every year at Christmas has a craft show. It sounds stupid, but you could probably sell, game wise, you could probably sell 15, 20, 30 board games, and they want $20 for a table. So
Right.
your investment is literally all I have to sell is one item, and I made my money back. You
Right.
know,
And one of the bigger points too is even if you go there and you don't sell a book or you don't make your money back, you have exposure. People have
yeah,
seen you, they think about you, and if they see you again, they might go, "Oh, Uncle so and so might be interested in that," because I've
yeah,
gotten more sales after a convention than I have before or
yeah,
during.
yeah. So things like marketing for that online is really good. And again, social media is great because social media is free. And even if you're not buying the Instagram ad or the TikTok ad or the other ad like Facebook as an example, I think that you can still get your product out there by having a page dedicated to it and pushing that page.
Right. And
And
yeah, getting into writers groups is a good one because you're going to have people that, they're fellow writers, but they're going to be interested in your work. Maybe have readers works like they've got, uh, what's the author stand. There's, I'm blanking on them right now, but
oh,
there's a,
there's a whole bunch of writing based, even web forums.
Mhm.
Um, there's the one that Robin, who used to work for me, is big into. I think it's writers.com or something like that. It's
Yeah,
a big,
writers.com. Yep.
yeah. Um, and I just think that what you have to have is you have to have a tenacity. Again, I ran into so much with my publishing company is people go, my book has been on Amazon for 2 weeks and I only have a couple sales. What's going on? You know, you're on Amazon, and that's another thing that I really tell people is don't rely upon places like Amazon because Amazon, you're one of 50 million different authors
Mhm.
on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm on Smashwords, Barnes and Noble, Kobo,
yes.
Amazon, a bunch of other places.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's diversity because you're going to
Yeah.
get different people in different places.
Yeah. Because you mentioned earlier something. You mentioned not only print books, you mentioned ebooks and audiobooks.
Hmm.
And I know that you have a few in audio. I have a couple in audio.
Hmm.
And audiobooks are another good one. And so are ebooks because people are now reading books on their phone, they're reading books via tablets.
Hmm.
So I think that in the game industry, we have people all the time say, is it available in PDF?
Hmm.
So having a PDF based book, I think, or a game product, is very important.
Exactly. And also I recommend, like, if you're just getting into publishing and stuff, get some help from somebody to actually publish it, but start out with an ebook because
Yeah.
I mean, ebooks are only like 20% of the market, but it's
Yeah.
a good place to get your feet wet. Once you're comfortable with your writing, you've got your audience, you've got your experience, start pushing out into print because print is going to start costing you money.
Mm.
The ebooks are the safety net because you can do a lot of free publishing with those.
Yeah.
But print books are going to start costing you money. And then when you're comfortable in print books, go for audiobooks because that's when your wallet's going to scream
Yeah.
bloody murder. Because
You got
like
to
for
get,
me, just to do what was it was
you did one of
I
your
th-
lines. What is it? Oh, dang it. I'm trying to think of the name. It's drawing blank. Your
Li-
series,
Land of the Lions.
Land of Lions. Yeah. You did some of those via
No,
audiobook,
I've
didn't
only
you?
done my ministry books as audiobook, but
Was
that
it?
was, yeah, I researched though the audiobooks for Land of the Lions, and it was $2,500 a pop.
Yeah. Yeah. For the reader to read it. Yeah.
Right, and you better get that thing. You better have that manuscript bloody right when you start because they're going back and making corrections in an audiobook is expensive.
And you better have, along with that, you better have already a customer base that's listening to you because popping out $2,500 just to have your book in an audio format, that's a hell of an investment.
Hmm. Yeah, so you need to be well established and well read by the time you get to that. If people want an audiobook of your particular novel or whatever, one
Yeah.
of the suggestions I give people is give them the ebook and tell them to use the text to speech tool that's on their
Yep.
phone or their computer or whatever.
And again, we're getting back into AI here because now available is for like $50 a month or less, you can actually have AI read your text. And
Hmm.
I know actually some people that are using AI, and it's getting so good, you can literally go in and say, the voice I want is Morgan Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll read, it sounds almost like identical to Morgan Freeman reading your bloody work.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a website out there that markets that I guess they've licensed with the movie star or whatnot for the voice.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and another thing is about print books and about print is I think that's important for both game publishers who do printed media, such as game modules or books, as an example, not board games. I'm talking about, printed media like that. We have in the gaming industry, there's a website called DriveThruRPG, and, you can upload your file and they will POD it,
Mm-hmm.
so they'll print on demand it or PDF sell it. They take the lion's share, of course,
Right.
But the thing is that's what a lot of on the game side of it, a lot of people use, because they can just take their game module as an example and they can go ahead and they can upload it in a PDF format, and it's literally upload and forget, and people buy it, they get their little chunk of change out of it, and there it is and out. And websites like that, I think that, and this is just my opinion, I think when you have a website doing POD, the large cost of printing on demand is the printing. So yeah, the pipeline you're using, the publisher using for POD for that should get the lion's share, because the lion's share is actually the printing of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't like to see is when someone is going POD for PDF, as an example, and they're taking 60% of the author's royalties. I think that is not right, because, you're taking 60 to 65 or 68% of the author's sale, because you're giving them the pleasure and the handiness of using your website. And that's why, like at Wizard Tower, we're going to be offering a online POD thing where it's reversed. It's literally you're getting the lion's share, because it's your work. You create, it's a PDF, it doesn't cost nothing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, but yeah, publishing, I think that just publishing in general is it's ever changing. It's changed so much since I had my publishing company in the last 10 years. And I think just in general, I think things have changed a lot for the better, because marketing your book has become easier if you're willing to search out and use the tools available to you.
Correct. Yeah, another thing I like to tell new authors, because there's going to be, one, you need to have a thick skin, because you're going to have a lot of really hard people coming at you, because they're jealous of you, and they don't want to do the work, but they want to, so they tear you down to try to make themselves feel better. Yeah. And the other thing too is, when you get into this, don't go into it for the profit. Don't go into it for the money you're making it. Go into it because you love doing it. And if you make money, awesome. If you don't, you still came away with the benefit because you enjoyed doing it.
Yeah. And you actually struck something really interesting. You talked about other people's commenting about your book, about input, about reviews. And I've always said, I do not mind a bad review. I really don't. I actually like bad reviews, as long as they tell me what, it's one thing to say, Don, your book sucked. Okay. But as long as you follow up with, and this is why I feel it sucked, A, B, C, and D. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have the people that are in there. They're just going to go after you. They're going to insult you, and you're right. Maybe they're jealous. Maybe you wrote about something that they had an idea and they think you took their idea, even though they're from the other side of the world. People are weird. But I think thick skin, like you said, is essential.
Yes.
You got to be able to take people going, Steve. Well, I'll give you an example.
The guy, the Earthfleet saga, he said,
purse their lips.
Yeah, exactly.
How long ago that happened? That happened, 12 years ago, and we still joke about it.
Oh yeah, it's like, somebody, he was saying, well, that lizards don't purse their lips. It's like, it's sci-fi. You could do that stuff,
Yeah, just for background on Steve. Steve wrote a book, and this guy came in and really flayed Steve on Amazon, because in Steve's book, one of the races was a lizard-based race.
The Gagpon.
Yes, and this character in his book, Steve mentioned, pursing of lips. And this guy was like, lizards don't purse their lips. And it's like, Steve's right. It's sci-fi. Lizards can do any darn thing that I want them to do. It's my book.
Exactly.
Oh, but that's what you get. But you got to be able to you got to be able to do exactly what me and you did. Is you got to look at that and just laugh at it and let it go out. I see so many people on Facebook, especially in writers groups. I don't know what I'm going to do. My book got a 1-star review. Did you read the review? Did you get some active feedback? No, they just said it sucked. Okay, then move on. It's not going to destroy your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other people are going to look at him and go, that's just somebody who's jealous because you got all these other 3, 4, and 5-star reviews,
Yeah. And another thing I suggest people do not do, don't go to your friends, because Amazon's kind of smartened up about this, is don't go to your friends and say, can you go to my link and give me a good review? Because now Amazon says whether it's a verified purchase or not.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of places don't. And that's one thing you don't want to have happen. I don't want people giving me a good review because they like Don. I want people to give me a good review because they read my book or they read my game and they really like it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing me a pat on the back favor because, I've never went into one of your things and done a review unless I've read it.
Yeah.
And same thing with you. You're doing an injustice to the author when you do that because that's ego stroking.
Yeah, and and this is true with even my coding, some of my work at my job and stuff. Don't go in there and, like you said, ego stroking. Go in there. I want the solid black and white facts. If it's good, thank you. If it's bad, why? Let's fix that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with some of the software I wrote for the support department, I was telling them, if it sucks, if it doesn't work, let me know. I'll fix it or I'll change it.
Yeah, because as an author, we automatically think we have a great story.
Mm-hmm.
But what you really find out is when it's out there in the wild and people are reading it, and somebody who's has never met Steve or Don, they read that book and they go, I got a problem with this. Because again, it can be something that you missed. It might be something that's a plot issue. It might be something that, like I'm bad habit of doing is I repeat.
Yes.
And I say the same thing sometimes in a sentence a couple, 3 times when I should not have.
Yeah, I have that exact same problem. I actually addressed that in a recent video I did. It's not up on YouTube yet, but basically, like, I will go in and when I'm initially writing it, if I haven't got the idea solidified in my mind, I will kind of sit there and beat the dead horse down to 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. But then I come in and start editing, and I realize, I can tell this in this 3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah. And again, another nice thing about it is we live in a digital world. So if I write a book and that book has error, if you find errors after you publish, you can edit those errors. You can correct your problem. It's not the end of the world. Just make sure that you mark it as a revision within the actual book itself by saying, this is the 2nd printing or the 3rd printing, because by doing that, that's why they have editions, because the reason why they have a 2nd edition or a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th printing is because maybe they ran out of their 1st printing, but also could also be they found some glaring issues and errors.
Oh yeah, they're still finding errors in Lord of the Rings even to this day.
Yeah. One of the book series that I was really a big fan of, and that's the Belgariad by David Eddings. He's gone now. He died, but his earlier works are riddled with editing errors, and they have post his death corrected them because he was famous. He would not let people correct his work. So, and again, before we end this, because we've been on this now for 54 minutes, but again, listen to your editors. You're not being, and that's another thing, you're not being insulted. When an editor gives you back your manuscript and it's marked with a bunch of red, trust me, they're not insulting you, they're helping you.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, I think we'll go ahead, we'll drop this in. I think we'll drop this. Steve, nice talking to you. We're going to be doing another video here. We're going to be talking about, Steve, what?
Well, actually, we were going to talk about artwork, but we already kind of covered that in this one.
Yep. We're going to get more in depth in artwork, and we're going to talk about world building.
Yes.
Because Steve has built an extensive sci-fi world universe, and I've built an extensive fantasy world / world. So I think it'll be a really good conversation. We're going to get into world building, world design, tricks, traps of it, things to make sure you always do, things you don't want to do. So, Steve, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, this is Don with Wizard Tower Games. Hope everybody has a good evening. Like, subscribe, please. I'm going to be posting Steve's information down below in the comments. And hope everybody has a good weekend.